The person you love is begging you one last time. Please read this message before it disappears. My beloved child, something has been trying to reach your heart for longer than you realize, and today that quiet whisper has become impossible to ignore. The person you love has carried words they could never bring themselves to say, believing that one more day, one more moment, would somehow make everything easier. Instead, every passing hour has only made those feelings heavier, until they could no longer remain hidden. They keep replaying memories that no one else knows exist, remembering small moments that seemed ordinary to everyone around them but became unforgettable treasures in their heart. They wonder if you ever noticed the silent glances, the pauses before they spoke, or the countless times they almost revealed everything but stopped because fear always arrived first. Now they feel as though time itself is quietly slipping away, and they cannot bear the thought of losing the chance to tell you what has lived inside them for so long. What they are about to reveal is far deeper than anyone could ever imagine, and the next moment changes everything. For reasons that even surprised them, last night became the turning point they never expected. While the world around them carried on as usual, they found themselves staring at an old memory that suddenly felt more alive than the present, and every unanswered question came rushing back at once. They realized they had spent far too much time hiding behind silence while hoping fate would somehow speak on their behalf. But fate remained quiet, leaving only one final opportunity to express what had been locked away inside their heart. They have rewritten this message again and again, erasing lines, starting over, searching for the perfect words because they believe this may be the only chance they will ever have to reach you. Every sentence carries a piece of their truth, every pause hides an emotion they were too afraid to admit, and every heartbeat pushes them closer to revealing the secret they have protected for far too long. Yet just as they were ready to let those words escape, something unexpected happened that made them hesitate one last time. At this very moment, the message still exists, but not in the way you would expect. It carries a truth that has the power to rewrite everything you thought you understood about this connection, and the person you love knows that once those words are finally spoken, nothing between you can ever return to the way it was before. They are standing between hope and fear, wondering whether opening their heart will bring them closer to you or cause the opportunity they have waited for to quietly disappear forever. Their hands tremble each time they read the first line because they know the ending cannot be changed once it begins. There is one sentence hidden inside that message they have never spoken to another soul, one sentence capable of explaining years of silence in a single breath, and before those unforgettable words are revealed, an unexpected truth is about to come to light. As the first words of that hidden message finally begin to unfold, the silence that surrounded this story starts to make perfect sense. The person you love never stayed quiet because they had nothing to say. They stayed quiet because every feeling they carried seemed too precious to risk losing. There were countless moments when they almost reached out, only to stop at the last second, wondering if your heart was ready to hear what theirs had protected for so long. Every sunrise became another promise that they would speak tomorrow, and every sunset became another reminder that tomorrow had quietly slipped away again. Deep inside, they feared that if they revealed everything too soon, they might lose the very connection they had spent so much time hoping would grow stronger. But now, the weight of those unspoken emotions has become impossible to carry, and the message they are holding is no longer asking for the perfect moment, it is searching for the honest one. Then something happened that changed their thoughts forever. A simple memory returned without warning, bringing back the sound of your laughter, the warmth of a conversation they never forgot, and a small detail you probably don't even remember saying. While everyone else moved on with their lives, that single moment remained frozen inside their heart like a page that refused to close. It was then they realized that the story between you had never truly ended. It had simply been waiting for courage to catch up with destiny. They stopped asking themselves whether they should tell you the truth and started asking a different question instead. What if staying silent became the one decision they would regret for the rest of their life? That single thought became stronger than every fear they had ever carried, and with each passing heartbeat, the message in their hands became more personal, more emotional, and far more surprising than anyone could imagine. But there is one final piece they have not revealed yet, and it is the reason this message feels unlike anything they have ever written before. Hidden within those carefully chosen words is a confession they almost erased forever because it seemed too unbelievable to say out loud. Even now, they pause every time they reach that sentence, taking a deep breath before reading it again, wondering if this truth will finally bring two hearts closer or leave everything suspended in unanswered silence. What they are about to admit is not just about love, not just about memories, and not just about hope. It is connected to something that happened very recently, something that completely changed the way they see your future together. And when that final page is opened, the first words waiting there will reveal a secret no one expected to hear. What they finally wrote on that hidden page was not rehearsed, polished, or carefully planned. It came straight from the deepest place in their heart, where every feeling had been waiting for the courage to breathe. They admitted that no matter how many times they tried to convince themselves to move on, something always brought them back to you. A familiar song, an unexpected place, or even a quiet evening would suddenly remind them that some connections never truly fade. They realized they were no longer running from their emotions. They were running from the fear of being misunderstood. That fear kept them silent for far too long, but now silence feels heavier than honesty. Every word they have written carries the weight of months, perhaps even years, of waiting, and with every passing moment they become more certain that hiding the truth would be the greatest mistake they could make. Meanwhile, another realization has quietly changed everything. They have started noticing small signs that once seemed meaningless but now feel impossible to ignore. Every coincidence, every unexpected encounter, every memory that appeared at exactly the right time made them wonder if life had been gently guiding this moment all along. They stopped seeing the past as a collection of missed opportunities and began seeing it as preparation for something far greater. That is why this message feels different from anything they have ever imagined sending. It is not simply about telling you how they feel. It is about revealing the reason those feelings never disappeared in the first place. As they read the message one last time before letting it go, one sentence makes their heart race faster than all the others because it contains a truth they have never trusted anyone else to hold. Now they are standing at the edge of a decision that cannot be taken back. Their finger hovers over the final step, knowing that once this message reaches you, every unanswered question between you will begin to find its place. Yet there is one final detail they have intentionally kept hidden until the perfect moment. It is the detail that explains why they called this their last chance, why they refuse to let these words remain buried any longer, and why their heart has been filled with both hope and uncertainty at the same time. Just before the message is completely revealed, your name appears beside one unexpected sentence that changes the meaning of everything written before it, and what follows next is the moment they have been waiting for all along. The moment your name appeared in that message, everything around them seemed to stand still. It was no longer just a letter filled with emotions, it had become a promise they could no longer keep hidden. They whispered your name softly, almost as if they were hoping the distance between you would somehow disappear. In that quiet moment, they finally understood that every path they had taken, every delay, every unanswered feeling had been leading to this exact point. They were not searching for perfect words anymore. They were searching for the courage to let you see the version of themselves they had hidden from everyone else. The message they held was no longer about what had already happened. It was about what could still happen if the truth finally found its way into your heart. Far beyond what anyone could see, another chapter of this story had already begun without either of you realizing it. The person you love had started looking back at every conversation, every smile, every unexpected meeting, and they noticed something they had completely overlooked before. The smallest moments had quietly become the biggest memories. They remembered things that most people would have forgotten within minutes, because to them those moments carried a meaning no one else could understand. That realization brought both peace and uncertainty. Peace, because they finally accepted what their heart had known all along. Uncertainty, because they had no idea whether you had ever felt even a fraction of the same connection. Still, they refused to let doubt write the ending of a story that hope had spent so long protecting, and that is why the next line in the message became the most difficult one they had ever written. Just when they believed they were ready to reveal everything, something completely unexpected caught their attention. It wasn't a dramatic event or an unbelievable coincidence, but a single forgotten detail that suddenly made every unanswered question fit together like pieces of a puzzle. They froze as they realized this tiny detail changed the meaning of every word that came before it. Suddenly, the message was no longer only about hidden feelings, it carried a truth that connected the past, the present, and a future they had almost given up believing in. They stared at that final paragraph for what felt like forever, wondering if revealing this one secret would finally explain the silence that had lasted so long. And just before those unforgettable words could be read, one astonishing revelation appeared at the very bottom of the page, waiting to change everything in the next moment. Just before the final paragraph could be revealed, they noticed something they had overlooked every time they reread the message. It was not a missing word or an unfinished sentence. It was a feeling hidden between the lines, a quiet truth that had been there from the very beginning. They realized they had spent so much time trying to explain their heart that they had forgotten the one thing they wanted you to know above everything else. Every memory they described, every hesitation they confessed, and every silent moment they carried pointed toward the same unforgettable realization. No matter how many seasons passed or how many roads life asked them to walk alone, their thoughts always found their way back to you. That discovery filled them with a strange mixture of peace and anticipation, because for the first time they were no longer afraid of what they felt, they were only afraid that these words might arrive too late. Then they unfolded one last page that had remained hidden from everyone else. On it was a memory they had never shared, not because they wanted to keep it secret forever, but because they believed no one would understand its meaning. They remembered the exact moment they silently promised themselves that if life ever gave them another opportunity, they would never allow fear to make the decision again. Since that day, every ordinary moment had carried an extraordinary question inside it. What if the connection they had been protecting all this time was stronger than either of them had ever imagined? That question stayed with them through every sunrise and every quiet evening until it became impossible to ignore. The message you are hearing now is the result of that promise, written with a heart that has finally chosen honesty over uncertainty. Now only one final section of the message remains unopened, and it holds the words they have protected longer than anything else. They pause before reading it because they know that once those words leave the page, there will be no returning to silence. Every unanswered question, every unfinished chapter, and every hidden emotion has been leading toward this single moment. They take one slow breath, close their eyes for a heartbeat, and prepare to reveal the sentence they once believed should never be spoken aloud. But as they begin to whisper the very first word of that final confession, an unexpected truth emerges that changes the meaning of the entire message, leaving the most important revelation still waiting just ahead. A quiet calm settled over everything as the final page rested in their hands, and for the first time they stopped searching for the perfect words. They understood that the truth did not need to be louder than fear, it only needed to be honest. Every memory they had revisited, every unanswered question they had carried, and every silent hope they had protected had led to this single moment. The message was never meant to change the past. It was meant to explain it. They wanted you to know that some stories remain unfinished not because they are forgotten, but because the people inside them are still gathering the courage to speak from the heart. As they looked at the last lines one more time, they smiled gently, realizing that even if the future remained uncertain, honesty would always be stronger than regret. The final confession was simpler than anyone would have expected. It was not filled with dramatic promises or impossible claims. Instead, it revealed something deeply human. They had spent too much time believing that silence could protect what they cared about, when in reality it had only hidden what mattered most. Every missed opportunity had taught them something valuable, and every moment of doubt had quietly shaped the person they had become. They no longer wanted to imagine endless, what-if, questions. They wanted to believe that even after long periods of distance and uncertainty, two people could still find the courage to understand one another. That hope became the true heart of the message, and it gave every earlier page a meaning that had been impossible to see until now. Just as they prepared to let the message go, their eyes fell on one final handwritten sentence tucked beneath everything else. It had not been there in the earlier drafts, and somehow it felt like the most important line of all. It simply reminded them that the most meaningful conversations often begin long after people think the story has already ended. They folded the page with a quiet sense of peace, knowing that whatever happened next, the truth had finally found its voice. But the story itself was far from over, because what happened after the message was read would become the beginning of an entirely new chapter. When the message was finally set aside, an unexpected silence filled the room, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like the kind of silence that follows a truth finally spoken aloud. The person who had carried those hidden emotions for so long realized that the greatest change had not happened on the page, it had happened within them. They no longer measured their future by unanswered questions or imagined possibilities. Instead, they found strength in knowing that they had chosen honesty over fear. Every chapter that came before had been preparing them for this quiet moment of clarity, where the weight of uncertainty began to fade and hope slowly took its place. As the hours passed, they found themselves looking at familiar memories with completely different eyes. Moments that once felt like painful reminders now became gentle lessons about patience, courage, and the importance of speaking from the heart before opportunities drift away. They understood that meaningful connections are not built on perfect timing or flawless words, but on the willingness to be genuine even when the outcome cannot be predicted. That realization gave them a peace they had never experienced before. For the first time, they stopped wondering how the story should end and started believing that whatever came next would be shaped by honesty rather than fear. Then, just as they thought every page had been turned, they noticed a small folded note resting inside the envelope, a note they had completely forgotten they had written. It contained only a few simple lines, yet those lines carried a meaning far greater than anything that came before. They smiled quietly, knowing that this forgotten note would reveal the final piece of the story, the one detail that tied every memory, every emotion, and every unanswered question together. And as they unfolded it with steady hands, they realized the true ending had been waiting there from the very beginning. With careful hands, they unfolded the forgotten note and immediately recognized why they had hidden it away. It wasn't because the words were too difficult to write. It was because they carried the kind of honesty that only appears after someone has spent a long time discovering who they truly are. The note did not ask for promises, certainty, or impossible answers. It simply admitted that some people leave a lasting mark on our lives, and that pretending those moments never mattered only makes the silence grow louder. Reading those lines again, they felt an unexpected sense of gratitude. Every unanswered question had shaped them into someone brave enough to finally accept that the most meaningful feelings deserve to be spoken, even when the future remains unwritten. As they reached the middle of the note, another realization quietly emerged. They had spent so much time hoping for the perfect moment that they almost overlooked the beauty of the present one. Every memory they had treasured, every smile they had remembered, and every quiet conversation they had replayed had been preparing them to stop living in yesterday and start embracing tomorrow. The message was never meant to trap them in the past. It was meant to remind them that genuine connections are built through sincerity, patience, and the courage to be seen as they truly are. For the first time in a very long while, they no longer felt as though they were carrying the story alone. They felt ready to let life write the next chapter, wherever it might lead. Just before they placed the final page back into the envelope, their eyes caught one last handwritten sentence at the very bottom. It was so small that it could easily have been missed, yet somehow it became the heart of everything they had written. Some stories are not remembered because they are perfect, they are remembered because they are true. A quiet smile crossed their face as they folded the note one final time, knowing that this message had fulfilled its purpose. Yet as they turned away, they noticed something resting beneath the envelope that had never been there before, hinting that the journey they thought